He's going to be talking to us about two main things: our changes to our good conduct policy. That's why we brought the 8th graders, as we know that they'll be funneling into the high school next year. And he's also here to talk about some social media issues that he deals with because he works with so many schools. So please help me give a round of applause.
To start with today, I want to hit 3 topics: nudity, Rice Krispie bars, and throwing chairs. I'm going to talk to you about what I'm seeing in schools around Northwest Iowa. I spend a lot of time in school districts with their legal issues. Let's go first to the nudity situation, okay? I know every one of you probably have a smartphone. Probably misnamed because frequently not very smart. And we rely on the phone. It's operator error, okay? I'm going to tell you one basic theme I have when I talk to students about smartphones. When you type something, when you're putting something in it, and you're going to send it, are you comfortable putting it on the front page of the paper and signing your name? If you're not, don't hit send, hit delete, because it's going to go faster and further when you hit send than if it's on the front of the paper, okay? Now, our first instance. Young couple in a school not too far from here. He was a junior, she was a freshman. They had a hot romance, so she sends him a picture of herself nude. At that point, no criminal act, there's no publication, because it's between 2 individuals in a private setting. Problem develops in that long about August, before his senior year, they break up. He's upset. What's he do? He sends it to a third party, and then it gets sent on. What's happened? That is publication. That is publication of porn. An aggressive county attorney charges him with disseminating porn. He's in juvenile court. They transfer it to adult court. He then is subject to a search warrant because they want to see what else is in that phone. He's put the pictures in a vault with a combination in his phone. So he refuses to open it. They send it to the DCI. The DCI can't open it. So the search warrant then goes to the judge, and the judge tells him, open it. He says, I don't remember the combination. She said, well, tell you what, we'll let you go over to the jail, and if you sit there maybe for a few days, you'll remember. After 30 days of sitting there, they let him out to go to school, and then he'd go back there at 3 o'clock. He struck a deal. And he basically pled guilty to an offense because he wasn't going to open his phone because apparently there were other things in there. And as a result, he is now a sexual offender. He's on the register. What does that mean? What is the consequence of an unintended act? You know, he didn't have any idea when he sent that picture the first time what was going to happen to him. Well, what happens as a sexual offender, if he wants to go to a school event, he has to get permission from the superintendent. If he wants to buy a house or rent a house, can't do it close to a school. The potential, he was charged with a felony. If the felony went through, he wouldn't be voting, wouldn't have the right to have a gun. You know, basically wouldn't be able to work in any security position. The natural consequences of an unintended, or the unintended consequences of his act, is that is going to follow him. And it's going to follow him for a long time. When he makes application, which he's made now, to go to college, wanted to go to trade school, specialty deal, they going to take it? I don't know. In my office, somebody makes an application and they're a sexual offender, I can guarantee you, we're not touching them. So, think twice before you send anything off these phones, because there's a great potential for problems later on. Then we'll go to another district. Last April, school was out. A couple girls were in a car in a parking lot. One of their pals comes by and says, "Hey, you guys hungry?" They said, "Yeah, we just got out." "Well, here, I've got some Rice Krispie bars." So he gives them each a Rice Krispie bar. They eat part of it, and each of them notice it tastes a little odd. And they also notice that they're experiencing some strangeness in their bodies. Well, they stop at the police station and give the police the Rice Krispie bars. The Rice Krispie bars go down to the DCI. The DCI sends back a report. They're loaded with THC. Okay? Well, the guy that made the Rice Krispie bars, about 2 weeks ago, got a letter, and his parents received a letter that his first 10 days of school were an out-of-school suspension for that reason. Well, and that he would be subject to an expulsion hearing at the end of those 10 days. He's going to beat it. So he, as his family, moved to a neighboring district because he had planned to participate in an athletic event that was going to get him into a small college. The neighboring district says, "Wait a minute, you're subject to a notice of, you're going to be having an expulsion hearing, plus you violated that good conduct policy. We're going to honor it as a violation of our good conduct policy." No. You know, you can enroll here, you may be expelled, because if they expel you, although you're not a student there anymore, but if they choose to move forward, you know, we can't enroll you without permission from their board. But the end consequence of all that is that he's not going to find himself with a scholarship he'd hoped. And it followed him from district to district. Third incident. In a morning class at a neighboring school not too far, a young man got in an argument with another young guy about girlfriend. The second guy had been out with the first guy's girlfriend the night before and made some comments. So first guy, who's a pretty good sized dude, picks up a chair and throws it at him. Second guy is ready and he dodges the chair. Unfortunately, the teacher standing behind wasn't ready and got hit by the chair. That violates the provision of the good conduct policy and a direct violation of an Iowa Code provision. Expelled, just like that. So, again, he had no intention of hitting the teacher, but he didn't think as he threw it, okay? Turns out that story has a little better ending because he was a junior. He worked really hard online, stayed with his class, came back his senior year, and participated in activities and graduated. And on his background, it's not going to look as bad because obviously it's not a sex offender or it's not drugs. But all I'm telling you is that a lot of times what you think is very minor and unintended has some consequences well beyond. Now let's look at your good conduct policy. And if any of you are familiar with last year's, look at this year's. There's some modifications, okay? And you know, as you look up there, you're going to see some things that are important to you. First of all, there's the expectation that you're going to be good representatives of the district. And it talks about being good citizens in and out of school, and role models to other students and members of the community at the end of that first paragraph. Critical. In addition, don't lose track of the fact in the second. The some conduct, although it may occur after school and off-school premises is severe, can cause a student to lose eligibility. That's your basic policy statement, and it's one you want to be very familiar with. Your activities, your teams, and individually too for yourselves in an individual sport. But everybody's counting on you. The last thing the administration or the board want is to have an ineligibility. And it'd be great if we could get through the year with never seeing an issue with this policy. These are our basics that are critical. To start with, the first bullet point: possession, use, purchase, tobacco, alcohol, drugs, vaping devices, lookalikes. It's common for a lot of people to think that vaping is not dangerous or is not harmful, and that if you vape, you're not having the effects that you are if you smoke. I have visited with some medical people that have studied this, and their opinion right now on vaping is that it's more dangerous than smoking because of the moisture that goes into your lungs, vaping. In addition, obviously, in vaping, all kinds of things are used. And I just caution you that it's medically a dangerous situation, in addition to being illegal, as far as action under your good conduct policy. This second bullet point, grounds for arrest or citation, that's a real broad brush, because what can get you cited into juvenile court is a really subjective standard. Don't take the chance. And, the difference between being arrested for something and being convicted are dramatically different. Convictions are not required in any good conduct policy, mainly because there'd be the delay and all the questions. Is there a reason to think that you violated the good conduct policy? If there is, it'll be applied. And then the third bullet point is at school. And the fourth, your training rules for your activity. Right. This is the one that creates probably the largest number of issues, and one that I want to talk about because it always comes up. Okay, now, first let's say you walk out of school at night after an activity, and it's a typical January night. It's ripping out there and a lot of snow. It's not pleasant. You're walking along and somebody stops and asks you if you want to ride. You hop in the back seat. Sitting in the back seat is a six-pack. What do? You're in possession of that six-pack, okay? It's within the area where you are. The only thing you can do is say, stop the car, I want out. You get out, okay? It's harsh, maybe because of the weather, but it's the only way you can truly be safe to avoid violating the good conduct policy. If you want to stay in the car and 2 blocks down the road, you have an accident or you get stopped, you're in the car with a beer. You violate the good conduct policy. Or if you, for instance, go to you've heard that there's a party over at Sam's house on Saturday night, you go over, you walk in the front door, people are in the living room, everything's fine. You walk in the kitchen, a couple jugs in the kitchen, a couple six-packs sitting there, you're in possession. What do? You immediately leave. What does immediate leave? It means you turn around and you go back out the door you came in. You get out of there. Okay? There isn't a time to sit and chat for 5 minutes. It's immediate. And the other thing is, it may be pouring rain outside. Too bad. It may be 10 below outside. Too bad. You immediately leave and make your phone calls outside. You don't stay inside and make a phone call to somebody to come pick you up. You just exit the premises. Okay? Then there's not an issue, and you're not going to be in violation of the good conduct policy. That's critical. Those are important steps. Okay? The other thing is, we talked about the car. And the other possibility is in the spring, the weather gets nice, going to be a party out in the field. You and I both know that there's going to be booze there, okay? But that's a bunch of seniors having a party. If you go, you're going to be in possession, you're going to be in violation. So you got to make that decision to say, no, I've got some spring sports I want to finish, or I want to play softball or baseball in the summer. No, I'm not doing it. Now, the one, and this, the last 1 and 2 there, set out what I just talked about. Again, these situations are set out here. As soon as you know there's something going on, that if you were actively doing it, it'd be a violation. If you're right there and you don't leave, you're in violation. So just don't let that happen. And the fourth one is the exception, of course, with parents. Okay, the policy has been modified some. All right? First offense, 1 event. See the second offense? 3. And the third strike, 10. Pretty much, third strike, you're out. But if you make the mistake as a freshman, or as a sophomore, you've got a clean record for 14 months. You roll it out. 1 time. You don't get 2 rollouts. You get 1. Okay, to clean the record. But I will tell you that you're going to miss 1, 3, or 10, depending on the repetitive nature of your behavior. So watch those. And the other thing is that you don't get to pick and choose your activities. You have to remember that as the activities come up in regular course, if they're 3, 10, it's whatever you have coming. It's the next activity, based on the decision by the day of the decision by the administration. Okay? Now, I guess what we do now is throw it open for questions. I don't, would like to avoid anybody not having an understanding. What we want is everybody to understand and not have any issues this year, okay?
Do we have any questions for him? I can bring the mic around if anybody has a question. Ms. Lux? Do you want the mic or are you fine?
So, say you're 18 and like when you're 18 you are like able to vape and stuff, and if you're super excited with vaping, can you get in trouble for knowing if you're of legal age to do that?
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's a violation of the good conduct policy. And it's just no vaping, having a beer or anything else. There's good conduct policy, and as long as you're involved in the district and involved in activities, you're not to violate those. And yes.
So with that, like, it said that it's not a violation for like having to do with your parents because that's legal, but like when they think you're legal to.
With your parents? If your parents are with you and are permitting it, you're okay. Yes.
What if you are like DDing for someone, but you don't go inside, but you did pick them up? Like, is that a violation?
If you're just a driver?
Yeah.
No, if you're dropping somebody off or picking them up?
Yeah.
No, that's okay, but you can't be the designated driver and have the beer in the car and think you're okay while the others are drinking. No, if you are just going to somebody's house to pick them up because they're leaving, it's not like you're violating by picking somebody else that's in violation. Okay. Other questions? Yes.
So if you're 18 and off campus, you can't vape or smoke or do anything involving nicotine and tobacco?
That's correct. And the reason for that is it's a health situation. You know, the district involved, if you're going to be in activities in the district, they want it clean.
Activities is anything, not just sports.
Pardon?
Activities include everything, not just sports.
That's correct, yes. It's all wherever the activities I think are defined as if there's a sponsor, a coach.
Yeah, so of course the sports are the first things that jump out to us as activities, but I can think of large group, small group speech, any type of extracurricular activity where there's some type of sponsor. That's how it's written into the policy. Well, when it comes down to prom, it's just a grand march because it's done in front of our public. So there are a significant amount of students who are not out for any activities and they might get in trouble and then they have to sit out the grand march. But they're still able to go to take part in the dance.
Oh, and that brings up one other thing, when I think of it. The National Honor Society have their own rules that are in addition to the good conduct policy. So be aware of that. Other questions?
Go ahead, Emily.
So what's the policy on cell phones? Because I've heard multiple things from multiple people.
Steve, I can speak on this. Emily, with cell phones, it's up to the teacher's discretion in the room. If teachers want you guys to put the cell phones down for whatever reason, then they're going to ask you to put the cell phones down. It's up to them. So we don't necessarily have a school-wide rule with cell phones, but we do put the power in the teacher's hands where if they feel like cell phones are an issue in the classroom, they can ask for it, and they give it back to you whether or not at the end of the period or the end of the day. Any other questions for Steve regarding the good conduct policy? Go ahead.
Okay.
This can be kind of irrelevant because I'm still in place, but like say for instance, you you went to a friend's house, correct? You're in the basement with your buddies, and you have no knowledge of anything going on upstairs. Like people came after you parked upstairs, like there's only 4 people, and then the 2 upstairs are drinking, but they're trying to keep it away from you two. And they get busted upstairs, but they're not like say that cops come and get busted upstairs. Does that still affect for all 4 people?
Steve, you want to repeat that question?
All right, let me outline the question. 2 people downstairs get there first. After they're downstairs, a couple of guys come in upstairs, and they're drinking upstairs. The police come and bust the guys upstairs. And you have no knowledge downstairs? Yeah. I guess it's going to sort of hinge on whether or not there's any belief that you had any knowledge. Whether or not, because I can see a situation where you were in separate cars, somewhat similar to that. I guess the best thing is, as soon as you know, you get out of there. Okay? Other questions?
We're going to use the mic for these questions.
Okay.
If you're at a party and you don't have a permit or a license and your friend brings you and you live like 2 miles away, what could you do?
If you're at a party and you see that they're drinking, you get out. And you just leave immediately. You don't sit inside and 5 minutes later decide you're going to leave. You leave then.
All right, folks. First off, let's give Steve a round of applause.